Today, we are going to be talking about the exposure trap and how to make those time-wasting exposure opportunities actually worth your while. It's the bane of my existence as an event professional. And every single week, my team at Balloon Artisan gets between 5 to 10 requests to donate our services to some cause. And then we get a handful of collaboration attempts on top of that, where someone's like, hey, you donate your services, I'll donate mine, we'll do this collab project, right? Now, surely all these requests and opportunities can't be bad, right? There's gotta be times when it does work and times when we should pass because it won't work. But how do we know which is which? Well, that's exactly what we're going to be covering. I'm going to teach you how you can tell if an exposure opportunity is worth your time or if you should give it a hard pass. Also, I've got a really cool gift for you if you stick around to the end of this podcast. My team and I have created a spreadsheet where you can fill out some numbers, answer some questions, and it will tell you whether or not a specific exposure opportunity will yield a financial payoff or whether you should pass on it. This is the Event Secrets Podcast, where we talk about how to put on better events, take better care of our clients, and make a whole lot more money in the process. This is an all-action, no fluff podcast full of actionable insights that you can follow that are created specifically for event professionals. I've been an event professional for about 13 years now. It's been quite a bit of time, and I've learned a lot. But during my early days, I was really desperate and really hungry to find projects. I wanted to make a name for myself, I wanted to make money, I wanted to be successful, and I also found out that I was a magnet for these exposure opportunities. I would take on every single project that came my way, and I'd even reach out to nonprofits and other organizations offering donations with this belief that it would somehow pay dividends to me. Well, I was going about this all wrong, and I learned after many years that that wasn't going to happen. The bank doesn't like it when you try to pay for your loans with exposure. Your landlord doesn't usually like exposure. You can't really buy food with exposure. And so all that exposure and goodwill that I had generated by giving away my services got me nowhere as an event professional. Now, it's important that we're making a difference in our community and supporting those causes we want to support, but it's also important that we're making money so we can support ourselves and our families and create jobs and do all the amazing things that come from running a good event company. So not only was I broke and not making any money and doing all these projects for free and covering the cost myself to do these projects, but I found out the only events that I got from those exposure opportunities were more opportunities to give my services for free. And that was really frustrating. And so eventually I got super jaded and I just said, no more charity work, no more exposure, no more collaborations ever. I'm done with this. In hindsight, I realized that was short-sighted. I just didn't know how to do it correctly. And so today I want to make this podcast so if you find yourself in this situation, you can know the proper way to set up exposure opportunities so you can get a massive benefit while helping the organization that you're working with. Now, the question that we need to ask ourselves whenever someone asks us to donate our services is not, does exposure work? Because certainly it can work under certain circumstances. But the question is, how likely is it to work for me in this circumstance? And what benefits do I need to get to make it worthwhile? So those are two really important questions. How likely is it to work? And what do I need to get to make this worthwhile? One thing I've learned over the years is that most exposure opportunities at face value are not going to work. They're not going to be worth your time. But it's very easy and very possible to skew the opportunity in your favor without charging your client any money for it, or any more money than what you have to, right? And so what we're going to do is I'm going to cover a bunch of my favorite ways that I've thought of that you can skew these exposure opportunities in your favor and to make them really worthwhile. So with that, let's talk about how we can turn these collaboration or these exposure opportunities into wildly successful financial gains for you. And the first thing that I want to cover is the old, I don't know if you'd call it an adage or saying, but it's when you're a hammer, everything looks like a nail, right? And this is something I talk to my team about a lot. This is something I remind myself of constantly. And it's because I feel like it's so widely applicable. And I think there's a lot that can be said here. Now, as event professionals, we often think things have to look a certain way for it to be worthwhile, right? Oftentimes that, certain way has to deal with cash, with money. And so, hey, I'll give you these services provided that you pay me this amount. But there's other ways that we can structure things that are actually more impactful to us in our business. We just have to be willing to be a little more flexible in our thinking. But this saying, when you're a hammer, everything looks like a nail, also applies to the clients and the people that are asking for these donations or these collaborations or exposure opportunities, right? We usually get 5 to 10 donation requests per week of some sort. And usually what happens is you have somebody that's planning the project and they have their team of helpers, and they tell the helpers, hey, you go find a balloon arch, you find a DJ, you find a catering, blah, blah, blah. This is the most we can pay. This service we want completely for free. This is what we're willing to do for them. Maybe we'll give these guys a sign, whatever it is. And so what happens is the helper goes out and they write a little email script and they copy and paste it on 5 to 10 different websites, and they just see what happens. And if someone says, sorry, we don't donate our services, they just move on to a new company until finally they find someone that's desperate enough to take on the projects, like Keenan 13 years ago, and then they will work with them exclusively. And they're just on a mission. Find donated services, find donated services, find donated services. And anybody that's not willing to give their services for free, they just write off, throw out the door, and they move on to another company. Well, it's your job as an event professional, if you want to capitalize on exposure opportunities, that is. If not, you can just turn them down, that's totally fine. You need to break them out of that kind of tunnel vision, right? You need to remind them, hey, there are other ways that we can achieve the same goal with different tools. And a lot of times those tools are going to work better than treating everything like it's a nail and you're a hammer. So what you need to do is you need to tell them, hey, I get that you guys don't have any money. I get that you can't pay for this, but there are some things that you probably have that would be really helpful to me. Can we negotiate about how those things are used? Like, that will be a breath of fresh air for them. They'll be very grateful that you're approaching the opportunity with that in mind, because most people are just going to say no, 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 unless they're naive and dumb like I was 13 years ago. Then they'll say yes, and then the nonprofit can exploit those people until those people wise up and they're like, oh, this isn't working for me, right? And the cycle kind of continues. But if you go to them and you say, yeah, I'd love to work with you, let's talk about what we can do together, that can be a very powerful outcome for you. And so here are my favorite ways that you can skew the exposure opportunity in your favor. Now, the first being, you're going to be doing something for an event that likely will have quite a few people there. And if it's like a charity gala or something like that, you might find that the people that are going to be there are pretty quality and they have a lot of money. A lot of times nonprofits do attract people with a lot of money. And so even though the nonprofit might not be a good client, the people coming to their event might be excellent clients for you. And so one way you can skew the opportunity in your favor is you can negotiate an opportunity to address the audience. Now, you need to make sure that you talk about what can and can't be said before you do this. Don't just like get up there and start promoting yourself. But you can work with the nonprofit to create a very tactful and respectable message that might attract some clients. For example, you can say, hey, now we got this deal going that, no pressure, but if anyone wants to work with us, we'll donate 10% of the project back to this organization. So that's a way that you can get the benefit, but still make a bigger impact on this organization that you're clearly passionate about because you're here. So that's the first thing you can do. Another strong advantage that nonprofits have is they can get a lot of free media coverage. And so they might be able to get a news crew out there. They might be able to get bloggers or influencers covering the event, or other companies that are there that are posting about it on social media. Now, you can negotiate to get some sort of airtime or coverage in whatever way that looks like for you and your services for supporting the nonprofit. And that's something that you might not be able to get in your business otherwise, right? You might not be able to call up some news outlet and be like, hey, do a story on me. But if you're working with a nonprofit like the United Way or something like that, and they're like, yeah, we're gonna have the news there, and you're like, hey, can I have, get a 5-second shout out, or can you guys show what I did and be like, hey, this is, from our sponsor so-and-so, like, isn't this awesome? If you guys want this, like, contact them, they've been so generous, or hey, here's this, blah, 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 right? Those are some really powerful things that you can get in exchange for donating your services, right? And it costs them nothing, but it can be very valuable to you. So that's a really good example. You could do the same thing with social media stories, right? If I create a really cool photo backdrop and I say, okay, I'll put the United Way logo on there, but I want my logo there as well. You can say yes or no, you don't have to take it, but if you want our services donated, this is the terms and conditions, right? My logo needs to be on that backdrop as well as a sponsor. And so that's an example of how you can leverage their media coverage, which is something extremely valuable because you probably can't create that kind of coverage on your own. Another thing that you can do is you can donate your services one time at one event, but you can negotiate getting benefits for multiple events. So if they have 4 events per year, you donate in the spring event and you say, hey, in order for us to do this, you need to give us a shout out or a sign or a sponsor booth or whatever it is at these next 3 events as well. And then we'll do it for free, because for us to be in front of your attendees, that's worth a lot to us. Another thing you can do is you can negotiate free tickets for things like, galas or the dinners or the meet and greets or whatever it is. You can just say, hey, I'll do this, provided that you let me come to this event and this event. You can also say, hey, I'm super excited to work with you guys. I'm actually trying to get more reviews for my business right now. So if you can get 10 people in your organization to promise that they will leave me and my team a review, then we will do it. Because that to me is very valuable and it's something that doesn't take a lot of your time or any money. So hopefully you guys think that's reasonable, right? Really good idea. Another really smart and simple play you can do is you can get them to cover your hard cost. So for example, if whatever you're going to donate would normally cost $2,000 to a client, that's what you charge, but you have a hard cost of $500 for your supplies. Maybe you say, hey, I'm giving you a $1,500 discount here, but I have these hard costs. Can you give me $500 for the hard cost? I won't charge you guys a markup at all, I'll just do it at cost. Sound good? A lot of times nonprofits have budgets for that. So that way you're not out of pocket anything besides your time, which is still important, but at least you don't have to absorb those hard costs of the donation as well. You can also negotiate signage or a free sponsor booth. You can also ask them if you can have access to the attendee list. Maybe they'll do this, maybe they won't. You decide if it's worth it to you or not. And then you can reach out to the attendees like, hey, it was so great to support this cause with you this night. My name's Keenan. I actually did that really cool balloon display. I actually have a deal I didn't want to talk about it the night of because it was all about, the United Way and their cause, but if your company or anyone in your network or you yourself have needs of balloons at all, let me know. I'll give you a great price, and also 10% of whatever you pay, I'll give it directly to the United Way. Make sure you make good on that promise. Don't manipulate people, but that's something that you can do, and make sure the client knows that you're planning on doing that as well. Another thing to understand is even though this specific event might not have a budget and they might be asking for donations, they might have a bigger event down the road that does have a budget. And so you can say, hey, I will do this for free, provided that when you have your gala, that we do this for our normal price. And they'll say, yeah, we actually have a budget for that. We have a big sponsor or grant or whatever it is for this thing. We'll do it, right? Cool. Can you pay me for that one now? And we'll be locked in for that. And then I'll do this one for free for you. And we're good to go, right? Like I would definitely make sure they pay for the full event before you donate the services, because what might happen is you might donate the services and then they might say, oh, you know what, something changed and now we can't do this, or the sponsor grant wasn't as big as we thought, whatever it was, right? And then you get shafted. So I'd make sure they pay for the full service if you're gonna donate the time before you actually commit to that. Sometimes this makes sense, sometimes it doesn't, but it's another strategy that you can use to skew the financial outcome of this exposure opportunity in your favor. The key takeaway from all of this is you have to know, as the event professional, how this is going to make sense for you if you donate your services. Obviously, if they can pay your full market rate, then none of this matters, ignore it all, just do the project. But if they can't, you need to be compensated in other ways unless you just want to give your time away freely, or this will not make sense for you financially. And hopefully they can understand that. And if you can teach them these things, right, break them out of that hammer nail mentality, this will help them to attract better sponsors for their events as well. So you're providing a tremendous amount of benefit to the nonprofit or your client while you're getting some benefit in return. I want to tell you about a cool story I heard about just last night that happened to a friend of mine. So they went to a charity event of some sort and they paid money to be there, I think. And this charity was having an auction. And one of the businesses that gave a donation for that auction happened to be a company that does like dental makeovers. So they said, hey, we'll give you 4 veneers to give away. So this service of, hey, we'll put 4 veneers, like fake teeth cap things, I don't know how to explain them, but make your teeth look as good and new, right? We'll give you those for free. You can auction it off for whatever someone will pay, and you keep all the money for this cause. Now, the company knows there's a high likelihood that somebody that buys this will not just want 4 veneers. They're probably going to want all of the veneers. And so the company gives away 4. Somebody happened to be my friend in this case, bought the veneers for like $900 or something like that. And then when they go in for their consult or however it went, they ended up deciding, I want all of the veneers. And my friend ended up paying an additional, it was like $4,000 to get the full set instead of just the 900. So I don't know a whole lot about the veneer market or how much they cost or whatever, but I can guarantee you that business did very well off of that, and the nonprofit made $900 for doing nothing. So that's a really good partnership. Okay, we're gonna shift gears a little bit and we're going to talk about how to figure out mathematically if an exposure opportunity makes sense for you or not. Now, just a reminder, I have a really cool gift that I want to give you for free. There's no strings attached. It's a spreadsheet that will do all this math for you. It's quite detailed. It will just ask you specific questions. You answer those, and then it will spit out, will this work for you? Will it not work for you? So here we go. In order to understand whether or not an exposure or collaboration opportunity makes sense for you, this is the equation that you need to know. All right, here we go. So we have the results have to be greater than the cost. Let's do the monetary cost. So this is going to be your fixed cost of material, supplies, paying your team, buying whatever, right? Plus time cost, that's a clock, plus opportunity cost. So op cost, opportunity cost. And this is just simply what else could you be doing if you weren't doing that thing, right? Do you have to turn down any clients to be there? Do you have to, could you use this money in other ways? Could you have this time be used in other ways? So there's that. Now you take all these costs, and then because we can never be 100% certain that this is actually going to work for us, we have to multiply this by some sort of risk factor, right? So here's the formula. Now, this will apply to any investment that you ever make. What you're looking for is you're looking to get more results out of the money that you invest multiplied by some sort of risk premium, right? So if I invest in Bitcoin or whatever, I can use this equation. If I invest in the stock market, if I buy certificate of deposit or whatever, a CD, right? I use this formula for all of these. Now for your business, you're going to kind of have to figure out what these numbers are. So for example, let's say for a Balloon Artisan, let's say, we don't know the results, but we're going to figure that out. But I do know that what I'm being asked to provide is going to cost me, say, $500. Plus I have to pay my team an extra $300. Plus the opportunity cost is maybe I can't take on another project, right? So we'll say $1,000 that we'd make from the other project. And then we'll talk about the risk multiplier in a sec. I'm just going to continue the equation here. Okay, so what do we got? We got 800 plus 1,000, so $1,800 times risk, right? So $1,800 right here is my fixed cost of being involved in this exposure opportunity, of this donation, right? Maybe if I were selling it to them as a client, I'd be charging, $3,600 or $4,000 or whatever it is, but this is my fixed cost right here, and I'm not getting paid anything for it, so this is money that comes out of my pocket. Now, this risk premium right here is usually the inverse of the probability my donation will pay off, if that makes sense. And so if I think I have a 50-50 chance of making this donation pay off, here, I'll draw it here. My risk premium is just going to be the inverse of that. So we have 1/2, that's 50-50. So the inverse is just flipping these numbers around. So it's going to be 2/1, which is just simplified to 2. So my risk premium in this case would be times 2. Therefore, in order for this to be worth it for me, I need to make a minimum of $3,600 for this opportunity to make any sense at all. Usually I wouldn't even do it at a 2x multiplier, but that right there is kind of the bare bones minimum. Now let's say that I'm less optimistic and I think there's only a 25% chance, so 1 in 4, of me actually seeing results from this. Well, then what I'm going to want to do is I'm going to want to multiply this by the inverse of 1/4, which is 4. $7,200 is the minimum amount of profit that I want to make as a result of this exposure opportunity, right? And this is profit. This isn't sales. There's still going to be costs. Like if I sell a customer, I still have to incur costs to fulfill that contract, to fulfill that sale. So this is $7,200 in profit. So this is the formula that I use whenever I evaluate whether an opportunity makes sense. Now, if you don't think it makes sense, there's two options. You can either sweeten the deal using the things that we've talked about or anything that you can think of, right? Get more publicity, get an interview spot, get reviews, get this, get that, get this and that, until you feel that you've gotten this much value. Or you can just say, sorry, this isn't for me. Understanding this formula right here is so important when it comes to investing or taking on these exposure opportunities or any other big financial move that you're looking to make. There's always a risk with anything that you're doing. You always need to factor in a risk premium. There's always hard costs associated with that, whether it's opportunity cost or it's time cost or money cost, whatever. And you need to be able to make some sort of return on that if you want to get ahead. Because I promise you that exposure can work, but it will not work unless you understand this formula and you're setting yourself up for success. When a nonprofit's coming to you or someone's coming to you asking for donations, they do not understand this. And so it is your job, if you want to be successful, to teach them about this. Like, hey, not only is it $500 for materials, but it's $1,500 for labor, and it's this, and it's that. Now I have to turn down this project. And so my overall cost of working with you guys is $5,000. Now I want to support you guys. I believe in the cause. I love what you're doing, and I want to help. And I'm not going to charge you money to do it. But we need to find a way to make this worth it to me and my team. Otherwise, we can't do it. Are you willing to work with me on that? And if they are, you have a good partner, and hopefully they can you can talk about some of these ideas and make sure it's a smart financial move for you. Once again, I have a special gift that I want to give you that I know you're going to love. I have taken this formula and my team and I put it into a spreadsheet so you can go in and you can answer a couple questions and it will do these calculations for you and it will spit out whether this opportunity makes financial sense or not. And of course you have to make the decision whether you're going to act on that information. We're not going to take accountability for that, but we'll do the calculations for you. If you want to get your hands on that spreadsheet, all that you have to do is connect with me on LinkedIn. So my name's Keenan Price. I am the CEO of Balloon Artisan and the host of the Event Secrets podcast. You can find me on there, send me a connection request, and you can send me a message saying, hey, can you please send me that spreadsheet you're talking about the exposure opportunities? And I'll send it right over to you. No strings attached, no cost. It's a really valuable spreadsheet. I know you'll love it. I hope you enjoyed this episode of the Event Secrets podcast, the podcast where we talk about how to put on better events, take better care of our clients, and make a whole lot more money in the process. If you know anybody that is also in the event space that would find this information interesting or useful, please feel free to share it with them. That'd be a huge help to me and would let me know that, yeah, people are finding value out of this so I can keep creating this content. If you're on LinkedIn and you have a quick second, go find me on there. My name's Keenan Price. I'm the CEO of Balloon Artisan and the host of the Event Secrets podcast. Send me a connection request, shoot me a message, ask me any event-related questions that you might have. I love connecting with other event professionals. Sometimes the event world can be pretty lonely. And so I think the better we do at connecting with others, the more fun it is for everyone. So thanks for being here today, and I'll see you next time on the next episode of the Event Secrets podcast.